Good evening, boys and ghouls. This podcast is rated E for explicit, so keep those little ears at bay, lest I drain them of all life's essence, leaving a lifeless husk upon the floor.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another episode of Deep Folking with your host Dan K and no one else. Oh wait, there's other people here. Everyone?
Hello, this is Brett on the mic.
This is Dan, and I'm glad Brett's here because he always loves these episodes.
I hate these episodes.
Hello, this is Victor. Don't address the camera.
All right, so we're all joined together today to do a Deep Folking episode on something that I've been wanting to do for a while, which is witches.
Ooh.
Oh yeah, we
Blair
already did
Witch?
an episode on witches.
You didn't. You did
Yeah.
2 episodes about Sabrina the Goddamn Teenage Witch.
We
Yeah.
did one on Massachusetts, which was very heavily focused on witches.
There are a lot of witches present
They
in
are.
Massachusetts.
We also did a lot of vampire episodes.
That
I
has-
did.
assume, based on Vampire Diaries, that witches and vampires consort.
They do.
that had nothing to do with
They
witches.
fall in love. That's what we find out. And
Well,
the way they watch the
sometimes.
drama.
No,
Yeah.
trust me, I have a wife who's an expert in this subject, and they don't often fall in love.
No, they're actually very diametrically opposed.
Yeah, they often have
Canonically
very
speaking.
different goals.
Is it like Underworld where they have like full like whole civilizations that fight each other in a civil war?
No,
type
they're
thing?
talking about the unicornization of vampires.
Yeah.
Yep.
Oh, okay.
Anyways, so I wanted to bring you guys here today to talk about witches because witches are awesome. I've always been enamored by the concept of the witch, which is the idea like
The
hey,
woman can read. Sorry, I'll stop. That's what it's like.
kind of.
You were
Kind
not
of,
far off.
right?
She knows herbs.
She knows.
Put her to death.
No, very much in the range of like, hey, did you hear Johnson got TB? Oh man, I wonder how that happened. I bet it was the old woman down the street.
Yep.
How would she even do that? She fucks the devil. That's how.
Oh,
That's how she's doing it.
This
Oh, yeah.
escalated real quick.
You know, that makes sense.
Yeah, she
I
did
get-
never
yeah.
get married. So
yeah,
I
she never
could
got
assume.
married. That's
Pretty
true.
sure I heard that.
All right, so what I'm going to start this with is a question on what is the earliest witch concept that you know of in historical literature or just your popular
Not our
culture?
first exposure to witch, because I think all of us pretty much will probably say Wizard of Oz.
I would love to hear your first exposure to witches. Actually, that would be a
Wizard of
great.
Oz.
Oh.
Yeah,
Wizard of
that's
Oz is my absolute first exposure to a
that's
witch.
much better than my topic idea.
Oh, okay. Well,
So Wizard of Oz is your first
Wizard of
exposure?
Oz, or and I'm not sure. Obviously, it may be if we had done like school plays based on like Hansel and Gretel or things like that, or just reading it in school, the witch in that. But like the first conceptual witch I picture is the Wicked Witch of the West, right? Like that to me is like that
Okay.
conceptual witch, or like the witch in Monty Python and the Holy Grail. But that idea of the, like, the long nose.
Right.
Right. In Monty Python, obviously, it's not really a nose. But anyway, yeah, that idea.
I'm
Oh,
torn.
this
I'm
dead air
trying
is
to.
great, Victor. You're
Sorry.
killing it.
Yeah, I'm glad
No,
he
Brett,
gave you
you
all
go
this
first.
time
I'm
to think.
trying. It's like too many things in my head about
The
the first time.
First exposure to witches for me is in Grimm's Book of Fairy Tales, which is something that I had access to as a kid. And so a lot of concepts of witchcraft inside of there. First television exposure to witchcraft, obviously, is going to have to be Sabrina the Teenage Witch as a kid. First movie exposure would have to be, again, with Dan, Wizard
The
of
craft. Oh,
Oz.
sorry.
Yeah, it depends. Like with witchcraft, you could go, are you looking for historical, mythological, pop culture, or real life practitioners of spirituality and witchcraft?
I'm glad you're on this
I've got
podcast,
answers.
Brett.
I've got answers for all.
Yeah, this is why we bring Brett to these things. He tends to be the most learned of us all.
Of the learn.
I wouldn't say learned, but
I think. I mean, does Greek mythology count?
Absolutely.
Yeah,
Yeah, I
wouldn't it?
want to say like something with Medusa or
Not a
like
witch.
the actual
Not
not,
a
a
wi-
witch,
not a
right?
witch at
Doesn't
all.
count.
Gorgon,
Okay.
not witch.
There were, I mean,
Yeah.
I don't even think there are witches in.
There's not like
Odyssey
it's
or
not.
Iliad.
You could argue that the priests or priestesses
Yeah,
of Hecate
yeah.
are witches,
No,
or
and
the
then it would-
oracles are witches.
Then it would have to be. I guess I would have to say Wizard of Oz is the first one, the one that like struck out to me. That's why I blanked. It's like I forgot the witches of something.
Eastwick.
Eastwick. I think
Where
that's
they
what's
turn them into mice. No, wait, that's the
where
witches.
That's the witches.
Witches.
Sorry,
That's
I
it,
love that
yeah.
movie. by the
Also,
way.
thank you for reminding me of a movie I completely forgot existed entirely.
It's
Such a good
fantastic.
movie.
It's the one where we're talking about the little birds too, right?
Yeah. Angelica
Yeah.
Houston is like the main witch. Oh, so good.
Fabulous.
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking of.
That's-
Because
Hocus
is that the one where they
Pocus?
turn into like Hocus Pocus is amazing. That's the first one.
It's not
fondly.
It is a fun movie. Shut
It
up.
is fantastic.
It's awesome.
You don't like
It's
it?
fine.
It's great.
It's great one time a year. You don't need it more than that.
It's a great Halloween.
One
To
time
me,
in my life, and I'm fine.
Yeah.
Yeah, it did.
I
do it.
loved
not-
Halloween as
that's
a
a
kid, and that
Halloween
movie
staple
was
for
that,
me.
and
I
because
think it's because you love drag queens so much, because it has a drag queen feel for the
It's
witches.
very.
Now, if we're gonna
drag-
talk about great witches in a movie, fucking Stardust.
oh,
Stardust,
very
solid
good.
witch.
That's good witches in a
seen
film.
Stardust.
Oh,
Stardust
God.
is a recommendation.
You should
That's,
watch.
Yeah.
it.
that's a
It's excellent.
solid.
It's a
recommendation.
Neil Gaiman novel.
yeah.
And they adapted it.
Who plays the witch? It's Michelle
Michelle
Pfeiffer.
Pfeiffer.
Okay, that's why.
Michelle
I wanted to
Pfeiffer
say,
is like
okay.
the main witch.
Yeah,
Oh,
okay.
so good.
Mm.
So good.
Wood.
Wood.
First of all,
100%.
100%.
No question.
Yeah, I mean, if we're talking about first witch ever encountered, it's absolutely Wizard of Oz.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's the prototypical witch. Like it's
Yeah,
the
that is-
it's the haunted house, or when you get the cute little sign
Yeah, like
for
the cutout
Halloween, the
silhouette.
cutout.
Mhm.
That's your witch.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's true.
I think I dressed as a witch for like my third birthday. Or sorry, third Halloween.
Their
birthday,
I was like,
yeah.
that's
like,
weird.
oh, do you dress up in
I'm
costume for your childhood?
That's the way we all stopped. Was like,
I'm almost
Do
positive
we-
when I was too young to know, like one of my Halloween costumes was as a witch. And,
really?
And by the way, not a warlock, gender, like non-gender specific. I
Pointy
was a
hat, broom.
witch.
Yeah.
Hat, broom, like big flowing dress.
Yeah.
In
Was a
the,
witch.
in the community, it can be gender neutral as well, so it's okay.
I thought warlock was the male.
It can be. It depends on who you ask.
Yeah,
I
but
thought
had
Warlock deals with
progressive
magic
parents,
that's
so-
actually more it's almost like alchemy, like you're taking
I believe that's a
Warlock-
sorcerer.
That's
an
an
Sorcerer-
alchemist.
That's an
No.
alchemist. Sorcerers are different.
sorcerer.
Uh,
Okay.
A warlock means oath breaker, so technically that is somebody that has gone back against their coven. If you want to view it like
Oh,
that.
okay.
Some
Jesus
people
Christ.
in
Fucking
the
God, yeah.
occult community that are male practitioners of witchcraft choose to call themselves warlock because they think that witch is gendered, but witch does not necessarily have to be gendered.
It is 100%
Yeah.
gendered, and we'll get into that in a moment.
In historically speaking, no, because there's a significant number of men that were killed for witchcraft in addition to women. Now, granted, there were more women that were killed, but there were also men that were put to death for witchcraft as well.
Yeah, historically, about 20% were actually male.
Yeah.
Wow.
And we can get into the breakdown on that too. So, what I wanted to ask is, first witch in literature, where do you think you find it?
First
In-
witch in literature. Oh gosh, that is a really good question.
We'd be very loose with literature.
Witch of Endor in the Bible.
Damn.
Oh wow.
Yeah,
that
Brett
right?
Jernigan knows his
That's
witches.
I was trying to like look for. I was like, I'm pretty sure there's a witch story in the Bible.
Yeah, I was gonna go with Macbeth, but I guess
I mean,
Bible
Macbeth is a
definitely-
fairly standard witch concept. So.
Well,
Yeah.
but like I guess they were pretty well established in that they were just called witches and everybody knew what they were. So I guess by proxy, if Shakespeare wrote that, it's assumed that
It was
people
probably
knew
in
what
the,
witches
yeah.
were.
Yeah.
Yeah, they definitely did in the 1600s.
Yeah,
yes.
yeah.
Yes.
But that's my first literary. That's as far back as I. Well, no, I guess Grimm's fairy tales are
Mhm.
still. Anyway.
Is Grimm's Fairy
19th century.
Tales? Is that that's
Yeah.
far past that time?
Oh,
Yeah.
all right then.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would have to say King James Bible, Witch of Endor.
Indeed. First book of Samuel.
Yeah.
So specifically, the Witch of Endor is hired. I guess not hired. Whatever.
No,
the
she's
king did.
hired.
Is she? Yeah.
Yeah, she's hired to conjure the dead.
Yes. Specifically to the prophet Samuel, so that Saul will know whether or not he will win his battle. Turns out, spoilers, doesn't. Real
Just
tragic
spoiled
in
the
the end of
Bible
it.
for
Yeah.
those kids at home.
So they're in the Bible. So witches are real then.
You know what? We're going to get to that actually as,
Okay.
as an idea. But you may also know some of the more famous line from the Bible, which is Exodus 22:18 for those reading at
Suffer not a
home.
witch to live.
Indeed, suffer not a witch to live, ladies and gentlemen.
Brett, how much do you fucking know about this already?
A lot.
I'm a practicing occultist, Dan. I have to know these things.
Are you?
Yes.
I've not seen you cast one spell.
He doesn't
Yeah, I
it
do that
out.
in private. I don't do that in front of you guys.
Where's my wealth spell?
Where's my payment?
What do you want? I'll give you whatever.
What's it worth to you?
I don't know. Depends on how much money we're talking. You know what? We'll take this off air.
We'll take this off
Yeah.
here. I don't discuss business.
So I wanted to start because I know Brett's going to have a little bit about the American side, but I wanted to start a little bit with the European witchcraft hysteria.
I've got that too.
Oh yeah, all right,
Yeah.
all right. So
Witch off.
Victor, you and I are just here as flavor. at
Yeah,
this
we are.
point.
absolutely,
Like,
you're
we're-
here to make dick jokes,
Yep.
and we
Yep.
need you here for that.
I'm
That's
here
all
for
right.
that.
We got you.
Or else it's just two nerds talking.
You ever
about
notice
witches.
that witches' noses kind of look like dicks?
No one
What about-
knows the wicked. I just saw that. Is that relevant? It's
relevant. It's relevant.
Wicked's relevant, right?
Why does a witch not wear pants when she's on a broom? Because she needs the grip. That was an
Ugh.
office
Sexist
joke.
m-
That was for all of you kids at home. That was a Todd Packer joke.
Yeah.
Oh, you did it in the Muppet voice. So I was like, man, did they do that joke?
I can't
Yeah.
really do
The
it. Todd.
Muppets were real edgy.
They're real
Yeah.
on that.
It's the 1600s. Christianity is engaged in an apocalyptic struggle against Satan and his army of hidden witches.
Jamestown is struggling.
Just to put you folks in the mindset of a European in the 15th and 16th centuries, moving into the 17th. The concept that these are the end times, the days are short, and soon enough, all the world will end and God's judgment will come upon you. And Satan's last effort in his impotence is to try to convert and corrupt the women around you so that they can do Satan's work.
Because it's
So-
also still the time when the Bible's in Latin. Only priests can read it, right?
It is
Oh,
in vernacular English at this
Yeah.
point.
Yes,
Oh, it
we
is.
are well into the Protestant Reformation
Okay.
during the swing of this story.
Gotcha.
Printing press has been invented, and you
Okay.
can print the Bible in your own language and read it. With
I don't think
a
I've ever
priest.
tied this together in my head before, but we I guess historically use Satan the way that they used aliens and Watchmen, right? It's the idea of like, we need to unify to stop that thing because it might come back, right? It could get us.
Indeed, sir. But assume in this case that
Satan.
Ozymandias fully 100% believes in the aliens,
Yeah.
and does nothing to make them happen. He just knows they're coming.
And that
Okay.
the aliens have always been here, and that they are insidious and have been here since the beginning.
And
So
do you
it's
think
the-
that that's like why ultimately we're seeing the downtrend in Christianity as like a popular religion? I mean, it's obviously still a very popular
Are we getting into this
religion.
now on our witch
Hold
episode?
on.
Is that
We'll get. Let's save that for the little bit towards the end, because there's. I don't know if we're going historical into modern witchcraft.
I
Is
think
where
that
we're
would be a
going
good
here?
run.
Okay.
Well, I
Absolutely.
just my point's not necessarily even witches. Mine is just like, is it just that like the church too long, like did too many false flags, and people are just like, you know what, I'm kind of done, You
I think it's the repressive nature of the church
Maybe.
that has led to its downturn, but also probably the false flags.
there's been a lot
But
of
with
false
every
flags.
repressive, there's other church branches now that are more open.
And I think we're also, we think of the Enlightenment and the Age of Reason as a long time ago, but we're still kind of in the swing of it. We're still moving through that
We're
era.
not that far away from the Age of Enlightenment in
In-
terms of
indeed.
all of human history.
Yeah.
we're the information age is not a far cousin from what you would consider that previous age.
I just want to get back to the atomic age.
That style was beautiful.
That's it. I just loved it.
You just like that retro
Yeah, retro futurism.
yeah, the
Yeah.
retrofuturism,
Yeah,
yeah.
And
Yeah.
it was great, and also it's a lot easier to build wonders during the atomic era. The information age, it's not as fun. So once I get there in civilization, that's when all of a sudden I'm having to research future tech and future civic instead of things that actually matter. It's very
You're
annoying.
Hard on the civilization train.
Yeah, you are.
So the era of the European witchcraft scare or hysteria took place roughly from about the mid 1400s to about the mid 1700s. Quite a long-lasting era of witches are real. What the fuck?
Okay.
During that period of time, and the numbers are disputed, we're talking about an estimated 50,000 to 100,000 people either hanged, which was the common
Mhm.
process to exterminate a witch,
Wow.
or
Much
burned at the
easier.
stake.
Much easier to hang.
So much easier to hang. You don't got to get the wood.
There's a
There's
lot
no-
of manual labor that goes into burning someone
Yeah.
alive.
Absolutely. Fire's hard to control. The rope, straightforward.
Well, also though, I mean, didn't they throw them into lakes to test their buoyancy?
That was more one of the tests, what's known as a test by ordeal, wherein if you survive it, then God has saved you, and you were not in fact a witch.
Wasn't that more to sell a book? Because I forgot who the famous person was that literally wrote the book on it, on how to find out someone's a witch. Came up with all these crazy contraptions that you like.
We're going to talk a little bit about that book. If it's the book I'm thinking of. Oh, yeah.
Oh,
We're
yeah.
going to dive into the Malleus for sure.
Cool.
So let's actually jump into that, because to a major extent, the European witchcraft hysteria and also the American is very much, it could be argued the progenitor of this is the Malleus Maleficarum.
No, I definitely could see that being the case. And it's also important to note, too, that the American witchcraft hysteria would have also been the European one at this point in time as well.
Fair enough.
We just have to differentiate it because of geography, but like the same shit happened in both places because they were the same.
Witchcraft
people.
jumps the pond, sweep the nation. All young kids getting into it.
But to an extent, reading up on it, it does happen much later than the major portion of the European hysteria.
Yeah,
like it's in the 1600s, the late 1600s.
Yeah, because it was still going on at that point in time, but not as like full hysteria swing as it was in America. Probably because news traveled slower, I'd had to imagine.
Yeah, they didn't have Reddit, right? Like they didn't
3
have a
months
way.
later, witches. So the Malleus
Witches
Maleficarum.
at England.
The ladies and gentlemen, gentle audience members, let me introduce you
They're
to
not that gentle.
the Malleus Maleficarum. So, published in 1486, the translation of the book is The Hammer of Witches. Although that pales in comparison to my favorite translation, which is German, Hex and Hammer.
Hex and Hammer is a dope ass name.
Hex
great
and
name.
Hammer
It's a great metal
is,
band.
you pick
Sounds
it up.
like a D&D quest.
No, it was released for the
Or a
Xbox
metal band.
360. It was okay. You can get it on sale in the Walmart rack.
Wait, is it
That's-
really a game?
No, not at all.
Oh,
I just-
okay.
that's what it
Sounds like a
sounds
great
I
game.
bought
though.
it. Hex and Hammer, I would buy.
That's my upcoming metal band, guys. I hope you all join.
That's what Wizard 101 became when it collapsed. Hex and Hammer.
All right, so the Hex and Hammer, the Malleus Maleficarum, because that sounds way more badass, was written by two individuals, although it's disputed on the second member. But the main guy here is a gentleman named Heinrich Kramer, who was an inquisitor in southern Germany. So
Boom, 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 boom,
I
boom.
thought
Knew
the
it.
same
Knew it was
thing,
gonna come in.
but I couldn't.
You dang old show about nothing, man.
Heinrich Kramer was a witch hunter.
Damn old profession about nothing.
Right?
Interesting thing about Heinrich Kramer. So he was an inquisitor for southern Germany, for whatever Germany you can consider Germany at the time. He was originally refused authority by the local ecclesiasticals. And he actually had to write to Pope Innocent VIII to get him to issue a papal bull, stating that not only does this guy have the authority in this area, but also witches are super real and a problem.
That's a really big deal. To
Right?
be able to petition to the Pope to be allowed to make a fucking papal bull. That's like an executive order of the Catholic Church.
Yeah, absolutely. So he gets this papal bull that says basically, if you don't help him in his process, you are essentially heretical. Like you are going against the church. So one
No
of the
one wants that.
no, it's
Real bad time.
yeah. There's repercussions that don't exist today. So one of the first attempts that he makes to prosecute a witch is in the town of Innsbruck in 1485. Basically, there's this woman named Helena Schuberin, and she is accused of witchcraft by her peers. So eventually, she is let off, like she is released,
Okay.
because one, all her accusers had personal animus towards her, and two, there was really not a lot of evidence for any of it besides the accusers. But specifically, what happens during this process is that Heinrich Kramer gets kicked out of Innsbruck
For failing?
for two things. One, because he was really heavily concentrating on the sexual aspects of the trial.
Oh yeah, like
Oh,
the
wow.
inspection process.
Yeah,
things
there
like
was
that.
there was a little bit too much concentration in that area, and also for quote assuming much that had not been proved. Unquote.
That sounds like just classic justice.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. We're talking medieval justice here, and it's
I
working.
love hearing the like old phrasing of things like that. It's so funny.
He was described by the local bishop of Innsbruck as, and this is actually a modern phrasing, quote, senile and crazy. Unquote.
Yeah.
Good.
So this is our author,
Okay.
and a year and change after his failure to persecute a woman he knew was a witch, he writes the Malleus Maleficarum. The Malleus Maleficarum. Brett, do you want to describe what this book is?
It's like a witch hunter's handbook almost. It describes how to locate and find a witch, things that all witches have in common, how to identify one when you've got them, and what to do with them once you get them.
Wow.
Yeah, it is the go-to handbook for taking care of your witch problem.
Everyone had this in their home.
So, the very interesting thing about the Malleus Maleficarum is that it is written from a perspective for lay people to a major extent. So first of all, the motherfucker takes that papal bull and puts it in chapter 1. He's just like, boom, there's the papal bull.
Oh, really?
He's proud of it.
Well, he has to
Absolutely.
establish his authority. That makes sense.
Yeah.
That's like a forward.
I understand. I get it.
Immediately after that is what's essentially a letter of support signed by the College of Cologne, Germany, which is also disputed because apparently they denounced the book following its publication.
Oh, okay. So, they
So it's
definitely
a
like,
possible
no.
forgery.
There might be some questions on that. That's disputed historically, but there's some questions. So here's the beauty of the Malleus Maleficarum. So it starts, part 1 is a discussion about the clergy. Basically stating, one, it looks at it in a philosophical question on, are witches real?
Okay.
The
Okay.
answer to that question is
Yes.
yes,
Yes.
because the devil is real.
Oh,
Makes
okay,
sense.
got
So,
it.
Witches are the devil's servants, so obviously.
This is the clearest he could possibly make it.
Okay.
Specifically, it also mentions the clergy's reluctance to go after witchcraft and how that harms the process of persecuting and finding witches.
Yeah.
And it's really apparent from the outset within this that the point of this book is not to convince these clergy members that witches are real. Rather, it is to solve the problem by exterminating all witches.
Sure.
So really
Gotcha.
coming at it from the side is
Yeah.
how we're tackling this.
We'll just let him know. Oh no, this is already a problem. It's under your nose the whole time. You haven't done anything. That's how he's selling it.
Yeah.
Book 2 or chapter 2 of this basically goes through how witches are made and how they
How they're
perform their
made.
craft and how you can protect yourself. So some nice at-home remedies.
Garlic.
No, not that's again vampires.
Crucifixes.
Maybe.
Maybe.
I think that was a
Possibly.
catch-all for
Yeah,
all
catch-all for everyone.
monsters.
It's worth a shot.
Came with the book.
give it a go. We're not sure.
If it works, let me know. I'll put out version 2.
What do you think are some of the things that witches were accused of in this chapter that they are known for doing?
Having black cats.
Not part of the Malleus
Destroying
Maleficarum.
crops.
Yes, they have done that. They have
Fuckery with livestock.
Yep, they have ruined livestock.
Eating
Family
children.
members being ill.
Infanticide is one of the
Okay.
crimes of witchcraft.
Yeah,
Oh,
Jews
really?
got that a lot too. So I understand that.
Oh yeah. The
we use them to make our matzah.
What the hell?
there's ties to
I
that.
feel like that would be
Yeah.
very bad matzah.
I don't know why anyone would eat that. It's a bread product. Why would you put child blood in that? Everyone knows Christian blood is salty. And you don't want that on your matzah.
Do you think at least one Jew was like, "Well, let's give it a shot," and they were like, "No, this is terrible.
This isn't good,
This is
guys. I didn't like this at all.
Levi, what are you doing?
I just wanted to try it.
Just once."
I don't think it's
Accuse us of it.
unfair.
I just wanted to see.
Amongst the other things that they are accused of in the Malleus Maleficarum are cannibalism,
Okay.
the casting of evil spirits to do harm upon others,
Yeah.
specifically cavorting with the devil. In
Separate crime.
in a sexual manner.
Of course, you have to
Yeah.
have sex with the devil.
Well, right, absolutely. You can't just sign something. And my absolute favorite is the power to steal a man's penis.
I forgot about that one. That one's good.
Really?
To what
Yes.
purpose? What do you do with it?
Well, until
Control
you,
him.
Yeah, until you did their bidding.
Oh,
Like,
And
you
then
don't
you
get
get
your
it
penis
back.
back until you do the shit I want you to do.
Yeah.
well, maybe we should stop assigning so much weight to our dicks, right, men?
That's right.
There it is.
Thank you, man.
My favorite part about it, by the way, by far, is that the witches would generally hide the penis in a bird nest or just box. Specifically,
So they found a dildo. So this dude found his girlfriend's dildo and was like,
not
witch.
so, because you could tell it was a real man's penis because it would move about the box like living members eating oats and corn.
One more time?
The penis would move about the box like living members and eat oats and corn.
Just
Corn
like
being
my
wheat.
penis does. I feed it a healthy diet
Oats
of
and
oats and
corn.
corn to maintain its virility.
What the
Victor, this
hell?
is for you. Corn does not refer to corn. It can
Like
refer
wheat.
to any
Any
grain.
Yeah.
wheat crop.
No, I get that.
Okay, I just want to make
I'm
sure.
just like
you
I'm
understood.
trying to think of what animal.
Does your penis not eat grain?
No.
Oh,
I want to know how.
Where did
Like-
it go?
Like it's
It
clearly
just goes
it's
in and
clearly
out.
the urethra is the munching part,
not
right? Like
necessarily. There might be a mouth on the testicles.
I think it's just
I think
penis.
it's
don't
just
know
a
if it's
penis.
Like an
no
octopus.
testicles.
The shaft itself is like the nose.
yeah, one of the greatest failures of the Malleus Maleficarum is definitely not having an illustration of this.
That requires an illustration.
We'll just go ahead and reach out to Jessica Grieving here. Jessica Grieving, if you
Don't-
could just
don't-
go ahead
don't
and
do
draw
that.
Don't listen to
everything
Dan.
there.
Don't.
That's,
we don't
Nope.
need that. No one needs
just
No
go
one
ahead and
needs
make
that.
that.
No, I've been listening to the podcast for a while. Do you draw these things they ask you to? Don't do this one.
Just go ahead and draw the dick that is eating corn in a box.
In fact,
Damn
I'm
it.
even sorry I brought it up.
But not maize. Please be historically
All right, so
I'm
the-
trying to like logistically like no, it's probably Earth. I'm like no, I can't think of anything that you.
I'm
would
glad
say.
this is going to be in your head now.
It's
Yeah.
just
Like for the
trapped
rest
there.
of the
That's
night, this
what's
movie,
horrifying.
It's just a
chomping
tan
penis.
snake. That's all.
It's
It's just a tan snake.
Did it
but they
cons-
don't eat
Grain and
No, but
corn.
someone might have seen a snake in a bird's nest because they eat birds' eggs and went like, it's a dick in a bird's nest.
Yeah, I don't think you're going to
that.
find a real world analog for this one, man.
I don't
Yeah.
either.
think so.
I don't
So
either.
either. I think he's just making them more. I think the minute he grabbed their attention with this,
Uh-huh.
like
That's the
immediately
big
was
one.
stood up at the
Gotta
at
sell
a
this
tavern
book.
and was just like, "This is how you tell the witch. You have the man's penis
And
in a
they
box."
will take your children and they will eat them and they will
The
eat
children
each
part are
other.
like,
they
whatever.
have sex with the devil.
This isn't doing anything
whatever.
for me, man.
and they will take your penis.
Wait, what?
What?
Right off. They
Feed it
snatch it.
corn.
What do they do with
They'll
it?
put it in a box and feed it barley.
That's not right.
It will be so filled with barley you will not be able to pass water.
Well, how do we stop them?
Well, I'll tell you if you buy my book.
That's what it was. It was like a bunch of guys sitting at a bar, like, whatever, man.
Yeah,
chill,
now
we
you're
get
paying
it.
attention.
He was testing like a stand-up comedian does, like
Yeah,
testing
and
the
literally
audience
just
to see
and that's what sold the book was the penis.
All right.
That's it.
Good God. So part 3 of the Malleus Maleficarum is...
Doesn't just end on that one.
Oh, no. Now we're into how to hunt and kill witches.
This guy has bad business. He should have sold that separately. It was like,
Right.
here's all
A
the
part
fear,
2.
and then here's how you actually kill them.
No, you
Yeah,
get
it's
it in
kinda like the
one
book-
omnibus package.
It's the book The Secret. It draw everyone in, and then you go, well, shit. We need to do a separate one, The Secret for Teens.
Yeah.
Because it's different when teens want to do it. That's very...
Absolutely. It's-
Oh, God.
So this chapter is 100% designed for lay people. It is for the civil authorities because he has given up on the church actually being able to do anything
Okay.
about this. It is a step-by-step guide to the conducting of a witch trial, from accusation all the way to issuing charges. Like it is written
Well,
in
that's
the
handy.
form. Yeah, right. It's right there for you.
You have the
Yeah.
whole, the whole process.
It is written very much in the Thomas Aquinas style where he asks a question and then answers his own question for you. So it's very much like, well, what if the witch is accused but recants? Well, what if the witch is accused but doesn't recant and then you realize that the accusers were wrong? Like things of this nature.
Okay.
So it is a extremely legal study on how to find and kill witches. Some of the information, and it was very helpful. For example, did you know that God would never let an innocent person be accused of witchcraft?
I did know that.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, because
Great.
he is kind. He is fearsome, but he is kind.
Huh. Well, that's good to know.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
So good. Then we only
we'll
ever
be
killed
safe.
witches. That's good to know.
yeah.
I
Yeah.
always wondered if we accidentally killed an innocent person,
No,
but
clear
now I
conscience.
know we
Rest
never
assured,
did.
we were
That's
always right.
good. Good.
some of the
That
things,
is a really bad catch-all.
That
for
is
any
all
justice
awful.
Oh,
system.
Anything.
it gets so much worse. So some of the things recommended to get your witches to confess. It recommended asking leading questions. It recommended the use of torture for the acquirement of confessions.
Okay.
It recommended faking torture. In other words,
Like the
the
pretense
threat
of
of
torture.
the pretense of torture. So torturing them, but saying like, well, let's torture them, and then making the people that have to torture them act like they're kind of not sure about this. So they take them to the side and they're like, hey, maybe if you confess, we don't have to torture you.
Oh
Oh,
God.
what the
That's
fuck?
a good legal system.
It recommended directly lying to the accused witches by letting them know that a confession would be their only way to avoid execution.
Well, that's fair. That makes sense. And then they would confess, and then they would probably have to get executed because they are a witch.
Well,
They're a
yeah,
witch.
They're
yeah,
a witch
that's
now,
illegal,
so you
yeah.
have to.
If you did confess under torture or the threat of torture, legally you did have to then be taken to a separate place where you were then asked to confess again outside of the danger of torture. If you then recanted your confession, you would then have to be sent to a different location where you could not be tortured the same way, but a different torture would have to be applied.
God damn,
That's
that's
awful.
awful. I didn't know that part.
Yeah, there was you couldn't torture him the same way because that's bullshit.
Yeah,
I wonder.
that's inhumane. Come on.
Yeah. Well, we peeled your fingernails off the first time,
Oh God.
but we can't do that again.
Yeah,
we're gonna
that's-
go toenails this time.
You don't use this as much, right? Yeah, we're just gonna go for the toes.
Ugh.
Brett, maybe you remember this. The main torture that they used was what's it called when they string your hands behind your back and lift you up?
Oh, I don't know the name of it, but basically it like forces all of your body weight onto your shoulders.
Correct.
Oh
And
shit.
it also makes it very difficult to breathe, so you feel like you're choking. In addition to being lifted by your arms.
Yeah, and that's not a lift you a couple feet off the ground. That's like lift you up a
Like
few stories.
Yeah.
Like if you
Really?
fell, you die.
Yeah.
Yes.
So you also didn't want to wrangle yourself free.
Yeah. It's
Yeah.
bad time.
Yeah, because wrangling would also ensure that you popped your shoulders out of their sockets, which is what's going to happen anyways.
Mm-hmm. It eventually happens.
Damn.
So, some really handy tips in the book as well during the process. For instance, if a woman did not cry during a trial, which
Oh
Yeah.
wow.
Women are very emotional and would cry if they were not
Makes
having
sense.
sex
Yeah.
with the devil.
yeah, easy get. Which actually, I'm glad you mentioned that as well. So the Malleus Maleficarum is the most misogynistic book of all fucking time. One, it is. You know what? We could argue that. My apologies.
Yeah, I
It
was
is
going to say
the-
the Bible's got some shit, man.
It is the most
know what you're talking about.
misogynistic book of 1486.
There you go.
There you go.
Sure.
More accurate.
I'll give you the 1400s.
Yeah,
I'll
you
give
got
you
it.
the whole 1400s.
So first of all, it's the Malleus Maleficarum, and if you know your Latin as well, it is surprising that it is not the Malleus Maleficarum. Maleficorum would be encompassing men and women, but Maleficarum is specifically the feminine version of the word.
Oh,
I did
okay.
not know that.
which
Well, yeah, but a
encompasses just
feminine
women.
title on a book would not sell.
I mean, it did sell. That's the name
No,
of
it's-
it. It was the
that's
feminine
the name
version.
you said.
I'm
it's-
so
yeah.
sorry. I thought you said it was the other way. My
No,
fault.
no,
In
no,
My
doing
fault.
so, it puts the.
Well, you know what they say,
pretense-
sex sells. guys.
Yeah.
So
I love
mean-
how you reversed your position completely and
I mean, the
still
first
did it
draft was
strong-headed.
penis in a box, and that just didn't work. And it out of context, you're like, no, I'm okay.
yeah, I called it dick in a box. No one bought that.
No one bought it.
No one bought it.
It did acknowledge the existence of male witches, but noted that usually they did it for pure power. They did it to become stronger.
Well, sure.
In their dark arts.
Men, they know what they're doing. They're not.
Indeed.
They can harness this type of power. Women cannot.
Huh.
But women specifically, I believe the quote I have here is, when a woman thinks alone, she thinks evil.
Ooh.
Oh.
So the
I kind of agree
So
with
these
that.
were single women and elderly women that weren't married. That's who these
Lesbians.
targeted. Yeah.
Yeah.
Let's
Yeah.
also be real. That was
Yeah.
also why a lot of these women were unmarried. Was
Yeah.
there were
Or
homosexuals. who
anyone that
didn't-
turned down any man at a
Mhm.
bar. Like literally, that's what this turned into.
Oh my
it feels
God,
like.
Belle from Beauty and the Beast
Yes,
was a witch.
that's what I was gonna say.
Holy
Any-
shit! What a new and entirely different show.
Fascinating.
Fucking Belle's a witch. Who knew?
I thought that and just haven't said it. I'm glad
Yeah.
that you put it out.
She
there.
reads books.
She does.
Yeah.
Uh huh.
That's what
She
they all think.
consorts
She's
with a
weird.
beast, the
To
greatest
clocks.
beast of the region.
Oh
Yeah.
my God. Damn it.
my
Man.
God, she cavorts with the beast.
That's what it is. Yeah.
Jesus Christ.
So yeah, the book, of course, is filled with
and a
with-
favor to save her father who's
Uh-huh.
dying. That's
Yep.
what it is. That's
Mhm.
all a metaphor.
Oh my God! And her horse is like her cat. I don't know, man.
No, okay.
No. You
So the-
tried.
Sit there.
The
Wait,
book
what's
is
the
absolutely
clock
filled to the
symbolize?
brim with depraved sex acts created, by these witches. That generally a female witch is created when another witch, and this is the common way it happens, just so
Okay.
you guys are aware, another witch creates a misfortune on a susceptible woman, who, as we know, are filled with lust.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Obviously,
And then at that point, that woman, having no other recourse, turns to the devil.
of course.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
to gain the power
as
to
she is
to right
wont to
themselves.
do. I think it's very important to clarify. This is obviously not my actual belief. Everybody,
No,
Yeah.
obviously.
No.
Do we have to put a /s at the end of this podcast? Is that
I feel like I need it because I'm really diving into the misogyny. And I don't want anyone to think
I
that
thought
is ever me.
that the way a witch was created was when you were a kid and you're trying to find a ghost book at the secondhand bookstore, and you realize that all the witchcraft books are also near all the ghost books, so you buy that too.
That's how you became.
That's
a witch.
okay.
Witches are made by a man witch and a woman witch falling in love.
Uh-huh. Yeah.
Oh.
And then the
And then a
stork
bat
witch
brings
comes
up-
with the-
Drums, and then
the
Satan
baby
drops
witch.
the baby.
So we've heard the reviews by the Pope,
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, he
not
loved it.
of the book, just of the guy who wrote it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And of course, the College Cologne has given it high marks. Maybe, probably not. My favorite thing about this book is that it was denounced by the Inquisition.
Fuck.
Wow.
Jesus.
They're doing something wrong with the
King
Inquisition.
torturers themselves did not like this book.
Wow.
Fascinating.
They were
Jeez.
opposed. The church specifically was opposed to it for its assumptions and methods.
Yeah.
So
None
the
of
whole
it's based
thing.
on anything.
Just all of it.
Do you think it's because maybe the Inquisition was starting to feel self-conscious about the hats at the time, and they were really just lashing out at anyone who made fun of big hats?
That is the Spanish Inquisition.
Oh, I'm so
Dan.
sorry.
The Inquisition is a much larger concept.
My fault.
Dealing with rooting out heretics
I didn't
from the
realize
Catholic
that
Church.
the Spanish Inquisition hats were not adopted by the entire Inquisition.
No,
Hats in the ecclesiastical discussion is always fascinating. There is so many there's so many heresies involving the nature of headwear and then also hairstyling. Especially in England, you can. This is not necessarily a history podcast on that, but if you want to go down the rabbit hole, listeners, there's an entire heresy revolving around whether or not the Friar Tuck hairstyle is appropriate for the church.
Is it not?
Some would say it is not, and some would say that that is the devil's work.
this could be its own podcast.
You could become defrocked were you to have the wrong hairstyle.
I want an episode on that. We'll talk about
Absolutely, 100%. All right, so the best part about the history of this book from this point, from publication onward, as a result of the turbulence of the time, because what do you have going on right now? The Reformation.
Civil War.
Right.
Oh.
Yeah, massive amount of warfare.
Yeah.
And ironically, the invention of the printing press
Ooh.
Oh.
allowed the work to flourish. From 1486 until 1669, there were 36 editions of the book released.
Wow.
So-
Wow.
That's popular.
So that's the equivalent of being on Oprah's book club at that time.
It was the second only to the Bible in sales for a solid 2 centuries.
That is insane. I
Holy
didn't realize
shit.
that.
It was the go-to book for civil authorities.
Where's it at now?
Like if you don't,
You can read it online. There's an addendum.
No, but I mean,
addendum-
like, where
wait,
is it in
addendum?
sales? Do you think it still sells well?
No,
Probably
no.
not.
It
I'm gonna
is-
look that
It's
up.
in the public domain now, Dan. So you can.
so we could print it if
Yeah.
we wanted.
Oh my God! Can we make a Go Folk Yourself Maleficarum?
It would not.
Malice Maleficarum.
No, there's actually a few websites where you can go and not only read the whole thing, but they not addend. What's the word I'm thinking of? They add extra information to it for you, so you have some
Addendum?
context. I guess is it addendum? Yeah, I guess.
Footnote it maybe.
Yeah, I don't know my words. But they add a lot more, so you can really get a feel for
Understand the context of
how
it.
fucking crazy this book
Yeah.
is. A solid 200 years, this is the book on the desk
Yeah.
of civil authorities trying to root out witchcraft in Europe
That's
and-
insane.
in America.
Yeah. Well, I mean, if you're of the mindset that this is a real thing and it is a real problem, then it would be very handy to have a book that told you how to deal with it. Because a lot of the hysteria side comes from a very overtly religious mindset, and when you have both civil and ecclesiastical authorities telling you that it is a problem, but not only is it a problem, but it's a soul damning problem, then man, that's a real fucking problem.
I say it's crazy, but I look at modern times where people have special cases for their credit cards so they don't get hacked, and people don't understand that and how that is witchcraft.
Hackers are
Like,
our witches.
Hackers are witches right now. Like everyone thinks that by telling you a piece of information or
Well,
or
that's
doing
not
some-
where our witch hunt is.
I
though.
thought-
Our
It's not
witch
is.
hunt is
I
on the
thought-
White
No,
House.
I'm not
that
saying-
needs to stop.
No,
No,
that,
we're
God
going
damn
there.
it.
Yeah,
No, I
okay.
wasn't going
Sorry, I'm
into
playing
that.
the misogynist role. Am I not
I
doing
was-
it right?
I was
And
just
we
going-
are pushing out 15 minutes for Dan's rant. And how do you feel about Trump today, my friend?
Well, let's just have
Here
a
we
quick
go.
conversation about.
You know what? That was actually enough. So what's amazing about this book really is that there can be arguments made as to whether or not it really like lights the torch under the witch trials.
Yeah.
It's a major influence for sure. But what's interesting is that before the publication of this book, to an extent, witchcraft's sort of like an ecclesiastical misdemeanor.
Yeah, it wasn't really a big it was a no-no.
Yeah.
It wasn't like a you're now on fire for that.
Oh,
It was more like a you shouldn't do that. Here's a small fine. Don't let us catch you doing
Do
this
some
again.
penance. You know what? You really need to spend a day in the stocks to think about.
You need Jesus.
Yeah, you
really.
You have been tricked by the devil into thinking your crazy ass has powers.
You don't.
So we're gonna put you in house arrest for like a week, and you just think about it. And yeah, within a 50-year time period.
That sounds like a good
And
punishment.
then did
for
people like go
having
into that to be
witchcraft
left alone
powers.
and other things too as well? Like, I mean, I could imagine that if you like didn't like people and were like, yeah, I'm a witch, blah, like, and you're just actually just reading books and actually like early scientists.
Victor's trying to come up with his own way to get out of the life he has right now.
No, I'm not.
So, like, you're saying you would be excused for being a hermit at that point. is what
And
you're
that would
saying.
be
Like everybody
That
would
would be my
understand.
life.
Like, you
on
could
the
play video
forums.
games all the time and no one can say anything because you're a witch and you have to stay
I
home.
mean, they would have to like issue a
All I
stipend,
have to
like
do
right?
is urinate in jars and put them outside.
Is that what you're saying? I just want clarification.
I don't do that, but I'm just saying.
I'm
But I
just
could.
wondering, is that where do people stand on that now? What's that look like now?
But yeah, if we don't blame it all on one nut job's book, how do you go in a 50-ish year time period from, hey, come on, don't do that, Jesus, to burn the witch?
No, I agree with the book. I'm just wondering if there's enough stuff around the book to.
Well, no,
like,
yeah,
bring
I don't
this.
agre fully with the book being the sole
Oh,
responsibility.
okay, gotcha.
be
Like,
fair-
you can't just point the finger at one thing.
Right.
No,
it's
yeah,
it's
it's a
always a,
whole-
number of.
yeah.
Well, I was going to say, like, when we talked about the
Factors.
Salem witch trial, one of the big things we kind of came across was the idea that the rye had gone bad.
Yeah,
Right,
Yeah.
that they may have all been hallucinating as well during that period of time because the stock of food they were eating had spoiled, and
yeah.
it was a known hallucinogenic.
Man, I should have listened to that episode. I would have probably prepared me well for this one.
Oh, it was really
Yeah.
good. We also talked a lot about colonial justice in that, which is fascinating. You should totally listen. Guys, if you're listening to this at home and you haven't heard that one, check it out. That one's pretty
Yeah.
good.
That's
It's one of our
that's
early episodes. but-
Massachusetts.
Yeah,
Massachusetts.
What episode number is that?
Like 4 or
Four or
5.
five.
You don't.
No,
you,
it's
you guys
gotta
don't
be
number
6 or
these.
7.
Is that
We do number them, but just not well.
okay?
We ain't witches, so we haven't had that book learning time to learn how to number things so good.
Well, I've talked about the European witchcraft hysteria. Do you want to go a little bit without kind of repeating Massachusetts episode
Without repeating it
into America?
it's because a lot of the similarities in Europe did carry over to America.
Yeah.
Because like the style of the hunting, so to speak, did carry over.
Well, and also with
and-
the printing press, I have to imagine that book carried over.
Oh, absolutely.
yeah.
No, it
Obviously.
certainly did. I mean, Cotton Mathers himself had a copy of it, and
Yep.
Oh, that sounds about right.
yeah, and I mean, he was heavily involved in it.
That's right. You talked about that
Yeah.
in the episode. I
Yeah.
remember you saying that you had
Yeah.
a copy of that book.
Yeah, which is leading to why it carried over because they'd use the same fucking practices that Europe did. In America, it was more so skewed towards again, like it does parrot Europe, but it was more so skewed towards women. There were several men involved in the trials as well. I think a couple hundred in America is the total number.
Yeah,
but in
something like that.
Salem specifically, it was like 20.
Yeah, Salem gets the big number. I think Connecticut comes in with like 11. Like Virginia didn't kill any somehow. But as it dots through the states, you get these little.
Yeah, like
Man, we're
so
really
when I
dumb
say-
over here, aren't we?
when
We're real dumb.
Yeah,
I mean, we're not 50 to 100,000 dumb.
Well,
I
you
guess
so.
can think about it in terms of relative population too.
Fair. Yeah. Oh god.
Yeah.
Oh god.
Yeah, so I like there was obviously a lot of trials that happened in America, but not a lot of them resulted in deaths. The deaths side, oddly enough, goes towards Germany and Scotland in terms of like most witches killed.
Come on,
Really?
Scotland. You're
Right.
supposed to be a good one.
No, Scotland got bad.
They got real bad. That's where
Really?
the burning part.
Yep. Yeah,
comes
they
in.
were the burners. But I believe, ironically, Ireland is like bottom of the list for killing witches.
Really bottom.
Yeah, bottom.
Like, as in they didn't kill any?
They killed extremely few.
Yeah.
If we're
That's
talking,
interesting.
if we're talking our America
Really?
Eurocentric,
I'm pretty sure
Ecclesiastically.
Montenegro killed 0, so they would be bottom of the list, right? So like, let's not say bottom if they still killed some.
I mean,
Bottom
they
should
were
be
down
0.
there.
Comparatively,
Comparatively,
speaking.
they're
Like,
right next to fucking Scotland.
I mean,
man.
That's a good point. They-
Yeah, to be to the top in the.
ecclesiastical, historically speaking.
Ireland had their own problems. They couldn't worry about the witches when they had to worry about Britain.
Well, they also they had their own form of Christianity, which was different than the Christianity practiced in America, or not in America, but in England and Scotland. And they actually brought a kinder, gentler form of Christianity to England and Scotland.
And also, the biggest
yeah.
problem with Ireland, so to them, witches wouldn't have been as threatening. Really, everything I've ever learned about the Celtic religion in general, it was the Fae, right? Their concern was the Fae, because
Yeah.
even in their Christianity, there's Celtic lore,
uh-huh.
right?
Really?
So their idea, I would actually want to research. I wonder if they ever did Fae trials, like people who you've been influenced by fairies.
Maybe. I mean,
you're a problem.
there's all sorts of things of determining someone that's been bewitched by the Fae. So it could be kind of similar to someone that's being bewitched by an actual witch or Satan.
So they just had more experience in it, and that's
Yeah.
why they're like, nah,
That-
there's other ways to deal with it.
Yeah, that whole haircut thing, that started in Ireland.
And it's all back to the friar tuck.
Yeah.
God damn
they
it.
they brought that to England. But in terms of American witchcraft hysteria, it was definitely there. We were just smaller. So the number of things that could have come out of the smaller number of people it's a numbers thing. You're looking at it in terms of like a graph, it probably would coincide with the population of Europe in terms of the level of hysteria and trials. Now, obviously, Europe would have had a longer go at it, so to speak, because there weren't enough
Yeah.
people here
What?
prior to 1600. And European settlers, that is. Did you want to talk about any of the modern side of it as well, or
Sure, I'd
leading
love to.
into
Well,
that?
well, before we get too far into it, so what we've done so far is a very,
Let's
like I
split
said,
up in a two-parter.
yeah, is that
Yeah,
what we're
we'll
gonna
do that. We'll do modern witches, and we'll do the history of the book.
And we may then, or now, depending on what you know, may want to go into witchcraft throughout the world, because we've really been concentrating more American and European. But there's a huge storied history in Asia and Africa as well to deal with witchcraft.
Yeah, but if we split it into a two-parter, that forces you to actually come back and record, which is always our goal. So that to me sounds great.
Yeah, I agree.
All right.
Yeah, I would
And
love to talk about modern witchcraft.
Yeah, because then we give
at
each
this
one a
length.
Yeah, because then we
Yeah.
could try to figure out exactly where on the map Hogwarts is. Because
Scotland.
we know it's Scotland, but where in Scotland? Right? That's modern witchcraft right there. Is
Right
figuring
there.
out where the fuck is Hogwarts.
I'm very impressed that it took this entire time for you to finally get to Harry Potter when we've been talking about witchcraft.
No, I put some jabs in there. No one caught them.
Did we not catch them?
I didn't catch
I didn't
any.
catch
Yeah,
them.
no.
There
I
were,
guess-
there were some jabs, guys.
Go restart the episode, ladies and gentlemen, and try to find Dan's hidden Harry Potter jokes.
I know. I'm really happy I have Harry Potter Easter eggs now. This is
Really?
great.
That's perfect.
I didn't
actually.
catch them. Usually
well,
I'm listening for
You'll
'em.
see if you catch them. See if you catch it when you listen. Oh wait, you don't listen to the show.
I do now.
I don't listen to the show.
You actually probably listen more than all of us.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
started listening actually to some of the newer stuff, and I gotta say, I don't give a fuck about the CW or the programming on it. And I don't know. I'm continue to be talked to about it
I
either.
believe Brett calls it UPN.
I like to call it UPN. That's funny only to me, and that doesn't matter.
All right. Well, I guess that wraps up our Maleficarum.
That's how I pronounce it for most of this episode. So, yeah.
Malabalabalabalum.
The Maleficarum, the Malefum.
Cotton Mather's Witch Be Bad book.
All right,
So we
stay
come back-
tuned for a further episode where we
Modern witches.
never finish this conversation.
No. We'll get Witches Part 2. If we can do 3 fucking parts on vampires, we'll
We
get
could
to
definitely-
Witches Part
I've been
2.
actually meaning
Absolutely.
to pitch you guys a Vampires Part 4.
We still need to do that. God damn it.
Good night, everybody, or good
Good night.
day. Whatever.